Thank you so much, Ben. That was beautiful. And this is the best conference in the world, I swear. This is as good as it gets. And every time I come here, I feel all that warmth and support from all of you, like I'm doing something unusual. You know, I'm just doing my job. I guess that you're not used to that from Washington officials. You know, wasn't last night fantastic? I couldn't believe it. When we heard Dan Rather validate all of our deepest concerns and fears about how corporate media has abandoned its sense of responsibility to make a buck, they're transforming journalism into infotainment right in front of our eyes. To hear it from a legend like that, though, with decades of experience at the pinnacle of the American journalist establishment, somebody who's really seen it firsthand, and I had a chance to have a dinner with him and to hear the stories of how the corporate officials are treating news and what they're doing to it. This should be a wake-up call to everyone in this country who cares about democracy's future. We have a problem here. And it was a special treat having Senator Dorgan as well. Even though he's from North Dakota, he's about as strong of an advocate as we could ever dream of in the Senate. He's been our champion on all of these issues: media democracy, internet freedom. When we met last year in Memphis, some of you might recall that I said that if the FCC rolls back the media ownership protections, that Congress has got to veto it, and you've got to hold their feet to the fire. And sure enough, Byron Dorgan made that happen in the Senate and vetoed the FCC's wrong-headed decision. You helped make that happen, and now it's time for the House of Representatives to act and send it to the President's desk. You know, who knows, maybe he'll actually sign it, change his mind, but in the more likely event that he doesn't, I think we've already sent a pretty clear message. Any media mogul that's thinking about gobbling up newspapers and television stations in the same city better think again. The winds of change are blowing, and we're going to blow that rule right off the books in Washington. We're going to take care of it. Even as we fight for media democracy, we need to battle the ever-increasing commercialization of the American media. American broadcasting was based from the outset on a commercial model, and it's worked out well in some ways. In the European model, it's been a government approach with monopoly, but since profits depended upon from the very outset of American broadcasting attracting eyeballs, there's no doubt that we have the most entertaining media in the world. But in exchange for this opportunity to make money, the government asked for something back for the public. But when the FCC took its thumb off the scales, beginning in the Reagan era, the media was free to chase the bottom line ahead of all else, and chase they did, right down to the bottom. It's time to curb the excesses of commercialism, as Congress intended. We need to put out new rules that clarify that sponsorship identification has to be clear and understandable. It shouldn't be buried in a compressed crawl at the end of the show that would take a magnifying glass to read. We need to fight thinly disguised payola, fueling homogenized playlists that leave no room for local and independent artists. We need to fight video news releases masquerading as news, with PR agents pushing agendas that squeeze out real news coverage and local community concerns. We need to fight those product placements that are turning news and entertainment alike into undisclosed commercials. And we need to fight those rapacious advertisers that are preying on the unsuspecting minds of our kids. It's time to reclaim the media. We've got to say no to payola, no to VNRs, no to product placements, and no to interactive advertising that's targeting our kids. We really need to go on the offense. I think we need to continue to promote the true American spirit of democracy, both in the media and in the internet. We've got to open our airwaves to low-power FM stations, and to minority voices, and to women. We've got to restore public interest obligations on broadcasters, and we've got to protect our public access channels that are under siege today. And the antidote to this, broadband, we've got to make sure that broadband is accessible and affordable to everyone, even if that means building municipal broadband networks. And we've got to keep the internet open and free of discrimination. We just can't let what happened to our media happen to the internet. We can't let a few gatekeepers control the internet so they can maximize profits in the service of advertisers. We need to keep the internet of the people, by the people, and for the people. P2P or peer-to-peer is power to the people, and we need to protect it. Now, just as broadband explodes our ability to communicate, get information, we're still finding our government trying to sneak one past us. I guess old habits die hard. We've heard here and we're learning about the secretive PR program run by the U.S. Department of Defense. It recruited, organized, and sometimes paid more than 75 analysts to echo the administration's themes and messages on the Iraq War and foreign policy. Many of these so-called analysts also work for military contractors or own their own military consulting firms. They were granted special access to senior civilian and military leaders in exchange for their participation in this covert propaganda operation right here in the United States. According to news reports, analysts who disagreed with the information given to them lost access that was valuable to their businesses. This comes in the wake of new revelations we're hearing about that network executives pressured news reporters to develop administration-friendly angles when we were heading into the war in the first place. This is another issue that unites a lot of people on the Hill. They, along with a lot of other leaders in Congress, including Commerce Committee Chairman John Dingell, asked the FCC to investigate. Well, today, my friends, I commit to you that I plan to demand a real and a thorough investigation of every aspect of this. We need to determine, without hesitation, without fear or favor, whether the DoD violated the laws against payola. These rules prohibit anyone involved with preparing broadcast or cable programs from accepting anything of value in exchange for putting something out on the airwaves without disclosing it to the public. And our rules also require that broadcast and cable stations exercise reasonable diligence in determining whether disclosure is needed for this kind of material, especially if it involves controversial issues of public importance. Do you think any questions were even asked? This isn't just a question of journalistic ethics and integrity. This is the law. And you know, I'd say the war in Iraq is a slightly controversial issue of public importance, wouldn't you? The American people have a legal right to know when the government's sponsoring a source that's purporting to provide objective analysis. And we need to conclude this investigation quickly. It shouldn't take years like some of our investigations have. Some of you might remember, I talked about it before, the investigation by the FCC of the Department of Education, which paid off Armstrong Williams to put out their views on the No Child Left Behind legislation. It took us over 2.5 years. Questions from the Hill, all kinds of calls from me. The good news was, in the end, we finally declared the obvious. Sinclair Broadcasting and Armstrong Williams violated the law. This investigation need not and should not take that long. There's no excuse for delay. Now, there's another law that might have been broken here as well. In response to the VNR outcry, the video news releases, the Congress specifically outlawed the use of federal funds for covert propaganda like VNRs. The GAO determined that a critical element of covert propaganda is concealment of the agency's role in preparing the material from the target audience. So today, I'm also calling on the Department of Justice to launch an investigation into these allegations to determine whether there's been a violation of the federal anti-propaganda statute. The federal anti-propaganda and payola laws are grounded on the principle that the public's entitled to know who seeks to persuade them so they can make up their own mind about the issues and find out whether or not it's a credible source for themselves. The public has a legal right to know when people pretend to be independent, unbiased experts, and they're not, in fact, hired shills to promote a corporate or a governmental agenda. For the past few years, we've heard a lot of talk out of Washington about spreading freedom and democracy around the world. How about uplifting the quality of our own democracy and freedom right here in America? And it starts right here in Minneapolis with all of you who came out here. You can demand that this investigation be done and get to the bottom of it. The founders of this great country taught us that freedom and democracy don't come easy. As Thomas Jefferson said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Still today, eternal vigilance is the real price for media reform and media justice in America. We have to secure our legacy as Americans, the free flow of ideas and information that was at the very foundation of our country. We're carrying this fight from our media onto the internet, and we've already won some early skirmishes. You've done so much. This movement has made a real difference in America, and it's really made a difference for us who are fighting on your behalf. And now you're battle-hardened veterans, and you've won these little victories, but you're ready for some even bigger ones. I can sense that there's bigger victories to be had in the very near future. And generations to come will celebrate what you achieved. For those of us in Washington who are fighting to take on the special interests, you're the wind in our sails. And I want to thank you and salute you all for everything you do for me and for America. Thank you so much. I'm all fired up and I'm ready to go. Thank you.